it's Brittany, and the Saved in the City podcast starts now.
Saved in the City podcast. Real talk, real faith, real women.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the official Saved in the City podcast.
Yeah.
I'm your girl, Brittany, founder and host of our new podcast. And guess what, y'all? I got my sisters, my Saved in the City sisters, with me. Hey, y'all.
Hey, girl.
How y'all? Y'all looking good.
Are
looking
cute.
cute.
Yes, y'all are.
All coordinated. Octavia, why don't you start off and introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. I am Octavia, or Pastor O, as you might hear. And I'm just so excited to be here. Like, I can't believe we're sitting in this moment.
I
We've been
know.
talking about this forever, so God is faithful.
I know. I'm so glad that you get to be here today.
Hey everyone, my name is Ty and I'm really excited to be here. I'm really blessed by what it is that we're doing and I really believe that it's going to be a tool to encourage other women. So I'm excited to be here with my sisters.
Yes.
Hey y'all, I'm Arandia, and I'm excited too. I think, like you said, just a space where women can just get real,
Yeah.
the raw, authentic. Sometimes we don't get that, and I think this is going to be the space that they're going to get that. So I'm excited.
Okay, so y'all are excited, y'all expecting.
Yes.
I feel the same way. Like, this is a long time coming. This is something that we've been talking about for quite some time, and it's actually happening.
We're here.
And so I hope that this is an encouragement for any sister that may have a dream or a vision or something that you've just been believing God to do in your life. Us walking this out, I pray that this is a testimony and encouragement for you to walk out the things that God is calling for you to do as well. So, okay, let me tell y'all. About them, okay? So we planning, right, at the office. I said, y'all, it's time, right? I'm like, okay, we about to do this podcast. I said, let's think about the things that we've been going through and navigating in our life personally because we do life together. Okay, so let's get these topics together of what we're going to talk about for episode 1. I'm thinking we're going to just come in, just nice and, build our way up to the heavy stuff. Y'all want to come out hot. Explain yourselves.
Real quick, real fast.
Might as well.
Yeah.
Y'all want to come out deep. I'm asking for tissue already. And we in the first season.
You know, y'all some of my favorite people to talk to, right? So I feel like I can be vulnerable. And I think that's going to be like the great part about doing this podcast is we get to let people in on the conversations that we already having, right?
Every day.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be, y'all just get a peek
Yeah,
at what we do behind closed doors.
So with that being said, episode 1 is This Ain't What I Prayed For.
Ooh. My.
This ain't what I prayed for, okay? So I'm going to do a check with y'all, and then we'll do our check with our sisters to see if we all in the same spaces, okay? So question number 1, have you ever prayed like a crazy prayer in frustration? Like, and then in hindsight, you like, oh, God, I'm so glad you did not answer that prayer. I'm so glad that you didn't give me what I thought I wanted. Anybody?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, just check it. Just let us know if that's y'all. Okay, have you ever prayed for something that you didn't have no business asking for?
For sure. For sure. And I'm so grateful that he loves us enough not to give us all the things that we pray for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then in my BC, I didn't even know to pray. I was just out here trying to make stuff happen on my own, thinking that's what I really wanted. Y'all know I told y'all the story that time about my high school boyfriend.
Yeah, girl.
Yeah, I just knew that was the one. Baby, I went to college. I got back. I saw him at the mall. I said, ain't no way. That's what
Thank you, Lord.
Okay, if that's you, ladies, if that's you, then you in
I
the right
know
room.
y'all can relate.
You in the right room. Okay, this is the last one. Then we gonna jump in. Okay, have you ever got something you prayed for, and then it wasn't what you thought it was, and you tried to rescind to rescind it back to return to sender?
Yeah.
Have you ever did that?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, what was it?
This call, that I feel like the Lord has like, hey, I'm like, hey.
Wait a minute.
Hold on, you asked for it? Wait a minute, I ain't know that.
Yeah,
Oh, I love that for you.
But you know that's Mirandia
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
That tracks.
Mirandia came out in a
It
vision.
does.
I did.
That ain't all of our testimony, but so you came out like, Lord, use me.
In 5th grade, I said I was gonna be a pastor's wife.
We had that conversation.
Right.
And now I say you can have it back, and he's like,
Wait a
"No."
minute. In
Fifth
fifth
grade, woman of God.
Wait, in
Grade.
the 5th grade?
She asked me what I wanted to be, and I said I'm gonna be a teacher and a pastor's wife. And then I told the Lord he can have it back. Like he wants-
Wait. So when did you tell him you could have it back?
I think my journey, like all now, I'm still like you can have it back. But
Mirandia, I did not know you
For real.
growing up. You wanted to be a pastor's
didn't
wife.
know that
That's beautiful.
That is.
yeah, I've had dreams and like all the things. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be. She literally called my parents. It was like, I've never had a 5th grade student tell me that.
Baby, Mirandia been saved a long time.
Yeah.
We
She's not-
love that for you,
yeah.
sis.
I wanted to dress like him, but I ain't never wanted to be one.
I didn't even know what a pastor's wife was. Like, she said, I didn't even know. I remember when God called me, I was like, dude, what? I didn't even know that people worked in ministry and like did church. And I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't even know that was a job and a role. So that is very beautiful. We want more young ladies that aspire to, be in ministry. Okay, sounds good. Well, so you wanted to return to sender once you started to realize what
What it
come
with,
with this life.
What's gonna cost me?
Okay, so you in your pastor wife training season right now, and you like, oh, okay, I didn't know it came with all of this.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to return to
I
center.
do.
Okay, so all
Do or did. Do or did. Do or
I
did.
did.
Okay.
We're
Okay.
finally like coming into agreement.
I love that for you.
Agreements for what he's called me to be.
I love that, Mirandia. Okay.
Hallelujah.
All right, how about y'all? Anything you've ever tried to return to sender? All right, so how about y'all? Have y'all ever had something that once God sent it, you were like, return to sender?
I absolutely have.
This son is gonna be good.
I ain't gonna discuss it. Go. I'm still working through it.
Give us a hint.
Give
Give us a hint, 'cause I feel like it's something that's gonna help some sisters watch it.
Yeah, I am happily married, right? But there have absolutely been times, and I've always desired to be a wife, but there have been times in my marriage, this is year 7 going on 8.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Where I was just like, I was just playing,
Yeah.
single me please.
Yeah.
But I know that God has called me to my husband, right? And he's called my husband to me. And so even in the tough times, we think things in our flesh, but we know for sure that the Spirit called us to be together. And so I'm really excited to even talk to women who are in that space, because I think sometimes single women think it's always desirable to be married, but sometimes you have married women that be like, I could see the other side of it. So you have all these different dynamics, and marriage is a beautiful thing, but it's hard. It's hard.
I agree with that.
Oh, okay, wait. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
My married sister.
Yes, so I agree, and that definitely would have been one of the things that I would say as well, especially as someone who, growing up, I thought I wouldn't be married, and so knowing that God called me to this marriage, a lot of times it's been like, hey, can I just dip out? Can I bow out? And he's like, no, this is what I've called you to.
Yeah.
And so in those moments where I feel like return to sender, really being reminded of the fact that I have a purpose in it.
Yeah.
And so I absolutely agree. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
it's not easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's like the calling part of it, right? Because we think of callings and we think of ministry,
Yep.
but we are absolutely called to our husbands. We're called to family, and sometimes it's hard to even navigate the ebbs and flows of that. But we know that we're called to it. So as easy it would be for us to I'm out of here.
Yeah.
We already know that's not our purpose, right? We know that God has called us to a thing. So I encourage you ladies to tough it out. It's not always gonna be easy, but marriage is worth it. The good outweighs the bad for sure.
For sure. Well, I gotta advocate for singleness.
Go ahead, sis.
Because I remember in seasons of my life where the same way y'all in the seasons that God called y'all into marriage, God had called me to a season of singleness. And although I love it now, it has not always been that way. I remember seasons of my life where I was trying to rush and get out of the season that I was in my singleness, not realizing that there's great purpose. There's been great purpose in, you know, my singleness. And so I love that you said that, because I think sometimes it's so easy for us to be rushing to try to get to the next thing without embracing the now thing of what God is doing. And so I'm grateful that God was like, oh, because I was like, okay, this gonna be the year. Then I was like, okay, next year, this gonna be the year. And I was like, okay, well, maybe he didn't, you know, he missed that, so this gonna be this year. And then hindsight, I'm like, okay, God, I see now what you've done in me.
for sure.
I've also seen what God has been able to do in my life with the flexibility that I have, the freedom that I've had. And so, sisters, if y'all in the season right now and you don't like it, and you're trying to return something back to God, I would just encourage you to like look at it again, because it's purpose.
Absolutely.
If God has you in a place right now, it's because there's purpose there, as I said. And yes, it's a calling, but with every calling, He gives you grace. He equips you for everything you need for whatever season He has called you to. So
Motherhood too.
let's throw away the return labels.
Throw it away.
Rip it up.
Unless it's not from God. Now, because you know, He not the only one that sends stuff out.
Absolutely.
He's
Talk
not
about
the
it.
only one that sends
Yeah.
things. Have
Oh,
you ever got something
whatever you're
and
asking
you
for.
thought it was God, only to realize that it wasn't Him when you got a little closer? Anybody ever been there?
Yep.
Absolutely. That's why we need to pray and
Yeah.
ask for God's will for our life.
For sure.
So it's not because we come up with these timelines, we have all these things that we do in our own strength, but it's like, no, let God lead this. Like, let Him order your steps. And I believe, like, when we get to that point and we stop trying to do it on our own, God gets the glory out of it, and He only gives us the things that He desires for us.
Absolutely. With that, I think it's important to recognize, ladies, that the enemy is a counterfeit. He's been doing that since the beginning of time, right? Portraying to be, the Bible talks about how he tries to act like he's an angel of light. And so many times he will see counterfeits in our life, which I think is why it's so important when the word tells us to be anxious for nothing.
Yeah.
Because if we're anxious for something, the very sight of what, we can think, oh, that's it, because we're so anxious for that thing. And so I think I've always told myself, like, I know when I'm ready, because when I don't desire it anymore, or when I'm not, gotta have it, like I know when I'm ready. How about y'all?
Same. And I think too, releasing control. I've had to learn how to okay, this is yours. So, and sometimes you still pick it back up, but continuing to surrender that thing and to allow it to fully be His. So I'm in that place of like, okay, nope, this is not mine. So I'm going to give this back to you.
For sure.
And allow Him to do it. So.
And we got think about that, right? Because when we say this is not mine, our life is not our own.
That's good.
We are not our own.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about releasing control, it's like, okay, I got to give my life back to God. That means I have to give my timelines back to God. That means I have to give my desires to God. I even have to give Him my preferences, which we've talked a lot about, even in y'all's marriages, your preferences, even with us, in our journey of singleness, like, okay, what is this if it's God, and what is this is my preference? Because many times I've had to put my preferences on the altar. Let's talk about that. Because you were just saying how we have to be reminded of, okay, this doesn't belong to me.
Right.
I have to release control. My life is not my own as a believer. Whatever, I'm not my own.
Right.
And so many times in my own life, I've noticed my preferences have gotten in the way of God's promises and what He wanted to do in my life.
For sure.
I think for me, it's been a journey of a lot of back and forth. And God, are you sure? And a lot of that comes from me maybe not even seeing myself as someone worthy of Him to give me preferences and to be a representative of His. And so through our love journey and our relationship, now I'm like, okay, I see how every time I've tried to do it my way or have my own preferences, how things have gone. So now because I love you and we're in this place, it's like I don't mind laying down my preferences, but it was not an immediate thing. It's been a journey to get there.
I feel like she said something so powerful. Go ahead.
I feel the same way. Even this walk with Him. If I'm honest, the call on my life, I did not want. That is not a preference of mine. I'm not like Miranda. Like I'm fifth grade. I'm like, I'm gonna go to church on Sunday and then I'm gonna go home. I'll see y'all next week.
Yeah.
Right? But I realized that God called me to more. And that wasn't my preference, but now I've come into agreement and saying, I don't want to keep on going back and forth.
Yeah.
I feel like I was holding myself stagnant by not accepting all of who God called me to be. And we have all these reasons, right? We care about how people perceive us and we care about what it looked like. And I've seen ministry done the wrong way. And so it's made me heighten this awareness in me. Like, I see the red flags. I see the reasons I don't want to do it. But God, I love you enough and I trust you enough that if this is what you called me to do, I'm just going to walk fully into that.
Yeah. I had to learn him as father. I think when I learned him as like, you're a good father and you want the best for me, then it was easier to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to give you my preference because I know you truly do want the best.
Yeah.
And so when I grabbed hold of that concept, I think that was easy for me as well.
I think this is so good. I can say something on all of it, but that's a really great point because when you know someone,
Yeah.
you trust them, even when you don't understand.
Right.
And I think sometimes we understand it in a natural relational standpoint, but it sometimes feels like there's a block when it comes to God because of how we perceive him.
Yeah.
It doesn't align with who he actually is. And so we understand in dynamics, friendships, relationships, I trust that person. Why? Because I've known her for years. I've seen her character on display. So if Octavia says, Brittany, I got you, because I've known her for a number of years and she keeps her word, I don't even have to question it, right?
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing, like you said, with our relationship with God. Like when we build that relationship with him and we see his faithfulness and his consistency in our life, when he says, I got you, or hey, I got this, then we can say, okay, you know what, I trust you. So I think that's so important of getting to know who he is in different phases, in different seasons of our life, so we can trust when he says, no, we're not doing it that way. Or, hey, no, this is what I see for you. Or this is what I have for you. But I think for me, that's what I was doing. He wasn't Lord over every area of my life.
Right. Me too.
One of the main areas he was not Lord of was my relationships. And so that's why I performed. That's why I tried so hard. I was interviewing for to be people's, I was settling for not even being I was settling for not even being a girlfriend.
Yeah. Oh.
I was settling for being a secret. It was such a disconnect in seeing myself the way God saw me and my worthiness that I didn't even think I was worthy to even be publicly acknowledged.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And so navigating through all of that and thinking that's what I had to do to be accepted. Whatever I was given, I felt like I had to accept it. If you tell me, because the situationships will give you a whole lot of different things, and then you be believing it. Like, well, maybe, I'm just trying to so like, girl, no, you're worthy of being acknowledged and being, not saying, the motive is to put, but, y'all know what I'm saying. And so, so that's what I had to walk through and what I've had to just really come to terms with. And God was very honest with me when I moved to Atlanta, like, I'm not the Lord of this area of your life. We can trust God in certain areas of our life, but not trust him in other areas of our life. But I kept getting the same outcome. Like I kept getting, the same result. And it was being played, being cheated on, being, doing things I shouldn't be. Ooh, I think by that season, I wasn't slashing tires no more. I wasn't, rolling up on people anymore, playing Inspector Gadget. I don't think I was in that season anymore. Am I feeling judgment?
No, not
I'm
at
with
all.
you. I'm with you.
No, I
Okay,
just didn't know that part of your story, woman of God. Ain't
yeah. I think I was beyond that point. Even if you there, sis, I've been there.
Yes, for sure.
But I kept getting the same results.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes the devil just wants to tire you out. But you got to get a new play. And that new play is God, okay. And even I'm walking it out now. I remember that was 5 years ago, but I'm walking it out now because I can be quick to not want to sit in the tension of waiting on God.
Yeah.
That tension of letting God be God and working things out in you and working things out of, that's a,
It's tough. It's an adult place.
you understand what I'm saying? So the other day I had to tell him, be still. I had to remind myself, be still and know I'm God. Because I wanted to pick some stuff back up. Like, oh, I can make a phone call. Or I can do this. Or I can do that. He's like, no, remember, I'm God of this now. And you're letting me do it this time. So you can get my result. I'm walking that out.
Yeah. That's good.
What? You still at the slash tires?
No. All acting look
Crazy.
crazy.
Look great,
Once upon a time. Yeah, we been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure, for sure. So let me ask y'all this, because we was talking about this before we started recording, about a time when you felt played by God. And I was telling y'all about when I moved to Atlanta. I think all of y'all were a part of my life in that season. Was it y'all?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank y'all for y'all's prayers.
You've
You
come so
know,
far. I'm so proud of you.
I just,
Beautiful.
what happens when when it don't go to, like, this wasn't, where this come from, God? I did not see this.
So grateful you're here.
Yeah, I really struggled. So if you don't
I
know,
was going to say, tell the ladies.
I was living in Alabama, and during the pandemic, before the pandemic, a prophet came to me, serving my pastors. You know, I had this serving from the background. You know, I did just enough to serve, but just enough to still be hidden. That was my thing. I'm gonna serve God, but just from back here, right? So I'm at this event, helping my pastors a Saturday night at this Kojic event, and one of the prophets comes to me and says, "You know that you can outgrow a city, right?" No, first the prophet said, "See me after the service," and I said, "Absolutely not." In my mind, I was like,
Not it.
"I'm not coming." Prophets made me nervous. I'm like, "No, you're not about to tell me my business." Like, no, sir. So I hid from him, and I was trying to and he came and found me. He didn't even give me time to come find him. So that was the first. I tried to hide from the prophet, and then he comes to me and says, "You know, you can outgrow a city." And my heart was like an elevator that broke. It just went to the ground. Because the last thing I wanted to be is not where God has called me to be.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm doing all of these great things, and now you're telling me I'm not where I'm supposed to be.
Right.
Y'all, I was nervous. I was scared. I had all the feelings. And he said, just don't be surprised by the next thing that God does. And for the next couple of months, I was just going through it. Cause I'm like, did I miss God?
Yeah.
Where am I supposed to be? I'm not supposed to be here. My community is here. The ministry is here. What am I supposed to be doing? Fast forward a couple more months. I'm in Atlanta at an event, and the prophet is closing out. He done prophesied to all these people, and all I hear is my name. And y'all, you know how you have an attitude, but you don't want to show
Right.
your facial expressions. You don't want to show you had an attitude. I was like, and he says the same thing. And so I'm like, okay, at this point, I don't know what God is doing. I don't know
Right.
where God is taking me. I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And then the COVID hits. We move into an office space. We hire our first employee. Everybody's asking me, well, where are you supposed to be going? And I'm like, I have no idea. I tried to do the little Sarah thing and decide where I was going to go. So I was like, I'm just going to move to California, or maybe I'll move to Texas. So then I started trying to plan my own, which that's not how God works.
Sure.
He moves us by assignments. And then I find out it's Atlanta. I have 2 weeks to move.
2 weeks.
I get here to help with my church, and in 2 months, the church that I came to work for splits, and it's ugly. And I am upset with God, because I'm like, you surely did not take me from everything I knew. I'm still grieving, because you can truly grieve seasons.
Absolutely.
Missing those that I connected to, my family there, my team there, to send me to Atlanta for this to happen. I felt played. I feel so played by God. So I think that's important, because a lot of times, sometimes we're not honest about how we feel,
Good.
because we feel like, oh, I'm less than a Christian,
Yeah.
or I'm not grateful if I'm honest about what we doing. And that's the season that I was in. And so I think I told y'all before, for months I didn't talk to God. Like, I told him, it became very transactional.
Yeah.
I love God's people. I would go to church. I would believe God for his people. But personally, I felt like I had been vulnerable, and you let this happen. And the very things I feared, you allowed to happen.
Yeah.
And I felt like it broke that trust that I was trying to build with my relationship with God. And that's where I was.
Yeah. I do believe that, and I know you know this to be a fact because you're on the other side of that and you're grateful to be here. But I think we as Christians want to avoid the pain.
Yeah.
but the pain is a part of our purpose, right?
Yeah.
And there are certain situations that we go through and that we encounter that if we don't go through them, we can't help somebody else through them.
For sure.
So once we navigate those things, I believe God is like, okay, you got that lesson.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next thing. And I think that builds our faith,
Yeah.
our trust in him, knowing that God, you know what's best for me. Even if it doesn't feel good, even if this situation breaks my heart,
Yeah.
you know what's best for me, because I feel like we learn who we are in those really tough times. So I encourage even the ladies watching, like, don't try to get through the hard times so quick, because there are lessons there, and God is just literally building up your strength. He's
Yeah.
building up your faith in those areas, because God, once you come through, you're like, oh, I'm that girl.
Yeah,
Like
that's what happened.
I did hard things. Like I can get through hard things. And I think even when we look at the next situation, you're like, but God, if you got me through that,
And do it again.
you'll get me through this.
Yeah, and that's so good, Ty. It's like in that season, I saw God in another way, because I really acted up. I acted like a brat. That God is not obligated to do things the way I want them done. He's not even obligated to tell us everything he's gonna do. A good parent growing up, they had wisdom. They didn't have to explain, we grew up in old, so, but as a parent in a place of authority, you don't have to always explain every single thing that you're doing. And I felt entitled. I felt, all of these things. And so to know all that was in my heart, but he was so consistent with me,
Such a
in spite, who am I to tell him what I'm not gonna do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As if I'm even worthy to even be in this position. But that's how I showed up. That's how I operated. And I saw in the midst of that season of my life, he was still consistent with me. He didn't treat me, because if somebody come with me with that energy, the Lord's still working on me. I'm like, well, baby, go on and figure it out then, child. I don't know what to tell, I'll have to. But he was his love for me in that season when I had all those questions, when I said, hey, I'm done with you. I'm only going to do this and I'm not going to do that. He was still so consistent with me. He still loved me. He still provided for me. And it was like one day I just was in a therapy session and I realized all of these months I haven't talked to him, and he hasn't changed. He hasn't even gone anywhere.
Yeah.
And it was that I'll never forget that day. I said, let me re-engage him at this level.
Yeah.
And I felt like my relationship with the Lord needed that, because since then it's been stronger.
Absolutely. And I think for me, I went through one of those situations too where I lost my job. And I'm like,
I remember that.
No, not me. Like, I'm that girl, right? And I remember having a conversation with God, and I just was crying out, like, I don't understand why you would allow this to happen to me. I know that I was good to this company. I know that I did right by my job. Like, God, how did you allow this to happen to me? And what was the hardest season in my life turned out to be one of the biggest blessings. But while I was in that season, I remember clear as day, and I don't hear the audible voice of God often. This day, I said, but God, full of tears, but God, I'm good at what I do. And he said, audibly, I heard, but I'm great at what I do. So who am I to tell you that I'm good at something and you know what's best for me, right? And in the moment, it felt like heartbreak. It felt like disappointment. It felt like God had let me down. But the reality is, it was a setup, because, baby, when I tell you hindsight, and what I know now, like, God, you were really looking out for me.
Okay.
And sometimes we'll stay in seasons too long and stay in places too long with people for too long. And God is like, let me shake this up.
Yep.
Like,
Because
I
if
know
don't,
what's best
will
with
never
you,
move.
because you'll stay right here. You'll stay comfortable. And God is like, I got something for you. Like, I got something better for you. So it's like, what we think is the best for us, God is like, but I'm a good father.
Yeah.
I know what's best for you. I know what's going to work out in your favor. And it's even his protection
Yes. Talk about that.
that he allows to happen, and his provision
God.
that says, because I love you and because you are my daughter, what may seem like a hard place, what may seem like a tough place, what may seem unfair. And guess what? It was even, to me, it was like, I care about what people think, right? And so I was trying to play out in my head, and I even got to the point where I was like, well, I can call some shots, I can make some calls, I could destroy some characters. But God was like, no, vengeance is mine, said the Lord. You hush. You let me do what I'm going to do. And when I tell you that God flipped that situation, and turn some things in my favor, but I had to be patient. I had to be obedient. I had to shut up. And I couldn't say all the things I wanted to say to all the people I
Say
wanted
that
to.
again.
I
Yeah.
had to shut up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he knows what's best. And when we operate in a place that says, God, I trust you,
Yeah.
I think that's too often we try to do things in our own strength.
Yes.
We think we know what's best for us, but we really don't.
Yeah.
We really don't. And that's why we have to have this Holy Spirit, a conversation with the Holy Spirit, and be like, and we had discipleship last night, and we kind of talked through that. And it's like, no, God, I'm giving you this. I'm gonna make you Lord over every area of my life. I'm not gonna do things in my own strength and in my own knowledge, but I'm gonna lean to you and lean to what you know is best for me.
Then we wonder why we exhausted.
Yes. Yeah.
His yoke is easy. His burdens are light.
Yep.
We wonder why we snapping off. We wonder why, because we trying to do stuff.
And
Here's
I
the
don't
thing,
will.
y'all. I'm talking about myself, y'all. I ain't talking about y'all. I'm talking about myself. The stuff I'm supposed to do, I'm not doing.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to do God's job instead of just like,
Yeah.
like you trying to do the stuff that you're not supposed to be doing,
Yeah.
negating the fact that there are things you are supposed to be doing
Say that.
you're not doing, ma'am.
Yeah.
Get yourself together. Y'all ever have a come to me meeting? Ma'am, get yourself. When I really got to get myself together, I'll be like, woman of God. I be having to have a meeting with myself,
Yeah.
like woman of God. I don't
Yeah.
like condemn myself the way I used to. I used to be really hard on myself and like how I talk to myself. But now I do know how to hold myself accountable. Like woman of God, this ain't it. This is what we're not gonna do. And I think that's important, right? Because sometimes we're looking for other people to be what we need. We need to hold ourselves accountable.
Absolutely.
Like woman of God, this don't align. We said we're not doing this no more. Put it down. Pop, pop. Put it down.
Pop, pop.
Pop, pop. Put it down. You gonna trust God this
Yeah.
time. You gonna let God work this out for you. And sometimes, baby, that is not easy.
It's not ever for me.
It's not easy always, but
Yeah.
it's worth it.
It is.
Thing I think that resonates in what both of you all shared is like literally allowing ourselves to be broken to a place where we're ready to surrender to God.
Yeah.
And then being able to say, you know, like how you said, hindsight, I can see the fruit of it all.
Yeah.
And just really being able to embrace it, because I know I found myself in a place where I was, you know, we're talking about disappointment and upset with God, and it's just like, I know I've been doing the things you asked me to do,
Yeah.
and then you allow everything to
That
fall
part.
apart around me.
Come on.
You know, and I had expectations and faith for you to not let those things that I took to you in private, like, God, I don't want to see this in my life, and you still allowed those things to happen.
Yeah.
And so being able to be okay with, hey, I got to step away and I really got to allow him to break me. So like you said, on the other side, I'm able to see the fruit. And I know it's not comfortable, but it's so necessary to be able to allow God to really strip you and pull back the layers.
Absolutely.
And I think I was you kind of talked about
That's
it.
what I was
How,
about to say. Disappointment.
listen, because you talked about how sometimes we stay in a situation too long. And I remember the Lord telling me I needed to leave Richmond. And I heard him, but I was trying to appease somebody else. And so I stayed. But then I lost my job. I had just bought a new car. And I was like, first you're like, God, why you let this happen? He's like, well, you were disobedient. And so he's like, now I'm forcing you to do what you need to do. And so I had to like, okay, what are we gonna do? And I knew I needed to go to North Carolina. He was like, I need you to heal and I need you to leave this place and go to your new place. And it was hard because, like you said, even though it was a lot of trauma and after my mom had died, but I was like, it was still comfortable. And so the Lord was like, I'm calling you to be uncomfortable. And so it's like, even this, you know, that I moved and so much happened in North Carolina, so much just things that just weren't in place. And I was very frustrated. So I'm like, so you called me to leave a comfortable place to come to this place. You said I'm going to heal, but now I'm still dealing with all of this. How do we go from here? And so it was a lot of tears, but it was still learning again how him to be father. And like, okay, God, I'm going to trust you in this. Even though it feels hard, I'm going to trust you in the hard thing.
Yeah.
I think thank you for sharing that. I was just thinking about just with that, like the disappointment and the grief
Yeah.
that comes with obedience.
That's another level of hurt.
The grief that
Yes.
comes
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
obeying God.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a real thing.
Yeah.
Boy, I just things is just coming up here. I'm like, oh Lord.
Yeah. Yeah, like what do I do when I know I'm doing the right thing and you still?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
It's tough. It's tough. But he gives us the strength to endure.
Yeah.
Right? And some of the really hard things that I've gone through, I realize now that I went through them so I could encourage someone else.
Absolutely.
So it's like, girl, you gonna get through it.
Absolutely.
Been there, there's another side.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah. Every new level, you will experience a level of grief.
Yes.
And I talk to the team all the time about two things being true at the same time.
Reality.
God could be doing something amazing in your life, and you're celebrating the new thing He's doing while grieving what you've had to let go of.
Yeah,
And sometimes the thing you have to let go of the most is the old version of yourself. It's like, okay, because I've learned the thing that was holding me back wasn't that I didn't believe God. It wasn't that I wasn't willing to put in the work. I was not willing to let go of the previous version of Brittany
Yeah.
to come into the new version of Brittany for what that next level required. And that's something that I had to get that really last year. He's like, I need another, and it's like, I just got here.
I feel like that for sure.
I just came.
Yeah.
I just accepted this part of me. I've just healed, I think, from that area. And you're telling me about to move again? You telling me to level up again?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's grief that comes with becoming
Yeah.
the version of you that God is requiring of you.
Absolutely.
And even grief was stripping off those things that people have told you were for so long.
Yes.
And having to, because, like you said, I think I healed from those things. And when you get to that next level, he exposes, well, nope, there's still pieces of this that you're navigating and dealing with. And then it's like, oh, you want me to shed, layers again. But just really in that how, as he requires us to go to new levels of ourselves, I'm always reminded about the people that are waiting on me to show up and to grieve properly, so that they, like you
How
said,
do you grieve properly?
I think it looks different for everybody.
It does.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm always like, I don't want anybody to see me grieve, and what I had to come to learn is like, I would just pack things on and never address anything. And so for me, grieving properly is like, now when something happens, hey, let me sit in this. How did I really feel? How did this impact me, instead of, well, I took this hit on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So that's what it's looked like for me.
For me, it's showing myself grace, because sometimes I feel like, why are we here again? And then the Lord is like, hey, like, it's okay to sit in this. Like, we're still learning something new. And to see like, oh man, I have grown in this, but God is still working on this area. And so having to like, okay, even in the process of grief, it's like, okay, there's some grace in that. Like, it's okay, like, to keep going. So just as I'm grieving, to show myself grace.
Yeah, and I think for me, in grieving, I just shift my perspective. So while this hurts, God, I see you doing so many other things in my life, and while I will sit in them, I'm going to be grateful for the things that are not being chaotic right now, right? Like, there's this beautiful brokenness, right, that I know that God breaks us to build us, and I'm like, okay, God, this hurts. I know that this hurts. I'm acknowledging the hurt, but I still have to keep going.
Yeah.
Right? So shift my perspective. It help me to see things the way that you see them.
Yeah.
Right? Show me what it looks like to grieve. Let me feel all the things, but let me keep pushing.
Yeah.
I think so often, because I've been in this season too, where I was grieving and I wanted to shut down and I wanted to isolate and I wanted to be by myself. And God is like, you don't even have that option anymore. Like, you have to keep going.
Yeah.
And so I think that's just the beautiful part about, God knowing what we need when we need it.
Yeah.
So he'll give us the strength to keep going. You can be sad about some things, but know that it's still like a breaking for my betterment.
Absolutely. Breaking for my betterment. For me, how I've learned and am learning to grieve well, number one is by being honest.
Yeah.
I did not realize, like, I recently ended a relationship that I've had for a very long time. And I did not realize how much things I excused. And I told myself I was okay with that I wasn't okay with.
Yeah.
like for the sake of wanting to make it work.
Yeah.
And it's been me sitting in, like you said, Octavia, okay, this is where it is. It's like, but you wasn't okay with this. And this is honestly what it is. Not what you wanted it to be. Not what you prayed for it to be. I think sometimes we can live in the potential of a thing
Yes.
or
Come
what
on.
we
Yes.
think it's going to become without realizing this is just what it is.
Right.
Like,
Yep. Right.
fam, he not that into you.
not-
Like, it's
yeah.
okay.
And we can save ourselves some heartache if we acknowledge the red flags.
Yes,
Because
instead
I don't
of
know
like,
what
it's
about us.
pink.
We be like,
It's
oh,
like pink,
well,
purple, you know.
Potential.
yeah, I feel like they can grow or they, you know,
Like,
people
fam, it
show
just-
you who they are.
Yeah, if you gotta wonder if they're into you, baby, they're not that into you. Anyway, so I was doing that for quite some time, a long time in my life. And one of the things, a part of my grieving is being honest about what it is and not what I've lied to myself to try to make myself feel
good.
better and comply to what I thought would make it work. So that's been a thing. And with that comes the tears, which
Yeah.
is the second thing.
Yeah.
I've cried. Like, I cry. My therapist has helped me to learn how to face pain. Those who mourn will be comforted. And so I cry. And another thing I do to release is worship. I've learned that my worship is where, and I know some people may look at me and be like, why she go?
Got to.
I have
Why
to.
she be rolling around, crying out like, why?
Jumping,
Because
running.
I have to get this stuff out. A lot of times I have to get out my fatigue. Like last time I was at church, I was giving God my fatigue. I have to give God my broken heart, my pain. Like I give God those things in worship that helps me grieve. And in worship, what you said it does, it shifts my perspective. And so those are some of the things that I've done, but also extracting the lessons and the things I'm learning and learning how to give that version of myself grace. Because I used to be like, how could you be so stupid? like how could you be so dumb to, this is how I used to talk to myself, that you would know these things and ignore it for the sake of wanting to be accepted or for 5 minutes or less feel loved. You know what I'm saying? So I've had to forgive the younger version of myself that even allowed a lot of the things that I allowed in my life while still honoring the version of myself that I am now.
That's good.
So
And I think the right community also helps. Like when you know, like, hey, this is what I'm navigating through, to be like one accountability, because then you won't let me stay there.
for sure.
But then also, hey, can we pray this through? And I think that's what I love about Saving the City and our community of like, hey, we're in this together. And so,
Yeah. So I always, that's very important. I know a lot of sisters may not have that type of community, but I believe God is too faithful not to assign people to every season of your life. Now, it may not look, because this ain't, even though we have community, this ain't always easy.
yeah.
There's accountability that comes with this, correction that comes with this. Like, I know we look cute, but this is not, like, we're growing.
Yeah.
And iron sharpening, I think we quote scriptures, iron sharpening iron. Okay, practically, an iron sharpening
sparks.
another iron.
Ouch.
Yes.
Right. So I think sometimes we say we don't have community,
Yeah.
but that's not true. Community is going to cause you to grow. Community is not going to be convenient or comfortable. It may not even look the way you thought you should look, but I believe the Lord is faithful to give you what you need in every season.
Yes, for sure.
Yes. Let's talk about, I got this other segment of the episode called I Love God, but His people be a lot.
They do.
Because the theme is, this ain't what I pray for. So anybody else is like, I love God, and I'll do, but I got to, with them, I got to,
Grace? You need grace? Jesus.
let's talk about it. Have y'all ever been like, God, I love you, but, comma, period, ... dash.
Every day.
This people part.
For sure.
Your people, Lord.
Yes, your people. Yes. So in my career,
Yeah.
He's definitely called me to lots of people, and in the beginning it was real cute. It was real easy.
That's how it started in the
He
beginning.
set me up.
He
Set up.
I was like,
oh,
Set up.
so good at this people thing. But the further that I've gone in my career, the more challenges that have come. And so I have to spend a lot of time in the Gospels to really understand how Jesus showed up and how he loved
When you say
people.
Gospels, you mean
Yes,
Matthew,
Mark,
John.
Luke,
Okay.
Luke, and John. Yes, and so really studying the life of Jesus and how he was able to show up and love people, because the reality is personalities and attitudes and the way people were raised and the things that all of that comes into play, especially, we talked about community and that iron sharpening iron, like all of that comes into play when you're dealing with people at a large level.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I found myself like, did you, like, you really created them? Like, like, really, this is,
Yeah.
but really being able to, one of the things that really helps me is really, I ask God all the time, like, let me see them the way that you
See
do.
them.
So
Yeah.
that way
That's such a powerful prayer.
I'm able to move past, I don't like how they looked at me, or, those types of things. But
Yeah, and I think you do people really well.
You do.
And I don't even know if you acknowledge how amazing. I texted Brittany yesterday. I was like, God did his big one with Pastor
That's
O.
exactly what she said.
Because I mean that the
think she
grace.
acknowledges
I don't
it
think
enough.
I don't think so. The grace that you have
She don't.
with people is amazing, and I think that's just a testament to how beautiful God made you. How just watching you navigate people.
Your
And I know it's not
sensitivity, yeah.
always easy, but you are grace for that. You're grace for people.
Yeah.
thank you. Yes.
Yeah, we just want to take a moment to give you your flowers.
Sure.
That's the reason why they over there.
These are for you. These are not for the set.
I don't think you acknowledged that enough. I think Ty just brought up a great point. You are. And just because you're amazing and graced for something doesn't mean that it's not.
Right.
Sometimes what challenges us the most is what we're most graced in.
Yep.
And on the outside, oh, you didn't even say it again?
It's somewhere.
That's what I'm saying. I didn't know this was a therapy couch. Y'all
I'm
should
about to lay down.
It was a therapy couch.
My God,
Right?
today.
Because I'm sure on the inside it probably feels like you fumbling. But then us that do life with you are like, oh girl, you
showing
so
up.
amazing.
Yeah.
You encouraging us, you inspire. But oftentimes that's what it feels like. We can feel like, oh my God, this is falling apart. I'm doing a horrible job at this. But on the outside, people are saying, oh my God, I'm inspired by how you mother. I'm inspired by how you're a wife. I'm inspired by how you show up in the workplace. I think that's amazing. And we give you your flowers.
Absolutely.
We give you your flowers. But I love that you said that. Doing relationships well make you have to cling to the feet of
Yes, they do.
God.
Yes.
Well, I think another thing that gets in the way of like hurt, because we hear everything from like church hurt, and I hear a lot of people. I'm an evangelist. So I like talking to people who aren't saved.
Yes.
And one of the barriers that they talk about is like church people and Christians. But one of the things I've learned, because that also almost got me to not accept my calling, because I wasn't a fifth grade. Thank God. We love you. But I was not the fifth grade, oh, this is what I'm going to do when I grow up.
Yeah.
This was nowhere on my radar.
Yeah.
Like, I was city girl, not saved before it. I'm young. I'm about to turn up. I'm getting ready to move to the Bahamas, be a housewife. We turn up on the weekend. Like, that was what I was aspiring to do.
Yeah.
So when all of this started happening, I was just like, you got the wrong person, right? And so not having a context for Christians and church people, and then some of my first encounters being what they were, I was like, first of all, I don't want to be associated. If this how Christians act, you can miss me with that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be associated with that,
Yeah.
and not even wrestle with my call, because I'm like, no. Then not only are you calling me to be a Christian, and some of your children act the way they act, then you're gonna call me to be a minister. I was like, oh no, because I heard about them. I heard about them hypocrites. I was like, no. Right? But one of the things I've had to learn, two things. One is expectations.
Yeah. Oh,
God has had to really, I had unrealistic expectations for humans.
Yeah.
Same.
me too.
Same.
And then I was wondering why I was disappointed.
Gonna let you down
Because he
every
ain't
time.
never told me that they failed me. It's one God, and they're not.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things I think sometimes in relationships, or we are hesitant to connect to certain things because we have unrealistic expectations of other hurting people.
Yeah.
We're all hurting and being healed.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things. What you gonna say, Ty?
Yeah, I think so. My thing is like the opposite, where you saw like, well, it wasn't the opposite, but I grew up in church,
Yeah.
right? And so the context in which I have of ministry is like, yeah, you could not want me to do that.
Yeah.
And so I think I saw like some ugly parts of it, and that's why I didn't want to accept my call, because I'm like, I don't want that level of responsibility.
Oh, God.
I don't want to feel all those things. I don't want to be held to this esteem. But then God had to show me like, but it's through my love that you are where you are.
Yeah.
And so how it would be selfish of me to not walk into the fullness of all the things because I don't want to navigate things the wrong way. But I'm like, but if I know what it's like to feel God's love, if I know what it's like to see God transform my life,
That part.
who am I to not be that for somebody else?
Absolutely.
Like, it may not, back to preferences, it may not be my preference, but I've seen it done the wrong way. And while I don't like it, I know that God can trust me because
To do it the right way.
my God.
I was over here thinking.
But yeah, that's why
help a lot of sisters.
Yeah, that hurtful season that I went through, the ugly side of ministry, I don't want to ever impose that on God's people. And so God, if you have to use anybody, if you then
Watch
here
your
I
tongue,
am.
chick. Watch your
Yeah, that's how I feel. Like it is not my
Wow.
preference. But if I could show somebody the love of God, if people could see the transformative love of God and get to where I am, then God, you can use me.
Yeah. Because God often teaches us in reverse.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've learned that in quite a few areas.
Because we know what it feels like. And like you said, now you're like, I don't want anybody else to feel this or experience this the way I have. And so sometimes he doesn't give us the teacher that we would expect.
Right.
But I always use the car analogy. I don't know how my car works. I just know that it works.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes if God would have given us as a teacher what we thought we needed, we wouldn't have known what it takes in order to be that. And so I think a lot of us, whether that's in our family, some of us, you may be called to be a wife and there's no healthy marriages in your family. You may be called to be a business owner and everybody in poverty, like in your family. You may be called to ministry. You may be called to spaces and you're looking like, I don't have an example. You have had an example. God has taught you in reverse of what not to be so that you know what to be.
Maybe I could write a book on that.
Well, when's it coming out?
I was just playing.
No, you wasn't.
Accountability.
Okay,
got it. I
So
got
he-
it.
sure.
It's right here.
Here's this,
It's right
here's
here.
this accountability that we're talking about. See, leave me alone. But yeah,
Show the people what we got. Come on. Show them how you act out.
man.
Show them how you act out.
the cameras are recording. I must be on my best behavior.
Zoom in. No, but really.
But that's
fair
a
point.
thing, because I feel like when it comes to ministry, when it comes to marriage, when it comes to motherhood, like these are areas that I'm just like, that it's been a tussle with for me to get to this point. While I know God has called me to these spaces, but God, you ain't showed me what that looks like. And so here I am navigating it. Here I am, even when it comes to like generational things in my family. I have acknowledged these things, right? And I don't want them to continue. So what does that mean for me? That means I'm carrying the burden of being the person to say, yeah, it stops with me. This stops with me. Like I have an 18-year-old. We're gonna break some of this stuff off my bloodline because I don't want it to continue. And while it hurts, and I didn't ask to be in this position, but I'm like, I'll be the one. I'll be the one. So, navigating all these different things in life, it's not always easy. We won't always have the blueprint. We won't always have examples, but that's why we have God. That's why we have the Holy Spirit. That's why we can pray and ask God, help me navigate these situations. I don't know what it look like, but if you call me to these spaces, then you got to help your girl.
I'm so proud of you.
Me too.
So proud.
There go your flowers.
Walk in.
Thank y'all so
I'm
much.
so
They so pretty.
proud of you. To see the transformation. I know it hasn't been easy, but even in a short amount of time, what God has done in you,
Amazing.
It's beautiful.
absolutely. Oh, child, this is good to me. Anybody else want to share?
I do. I have a question for y'all.
Yes, girl.
So, what is it? Can we love somebody and not like them? Is that possible?
Is there somebody in your life right now that you love and don't like?
Yeah, it is. In my job, I love her,
Uh-huh.
but I don't necessarily like her. But how do we, is that, because I know we hear it all the time, like, I love you, but I don't like you. And I just want to get y'all
Oh,
perspective.
first of all, if we telling them like that, we might need to
Circle back.
we need to circle back. But that's a great question. Can you love? The question is, can you love someone
And not like
and
them.
not like them because you got somebody on your job?
Yeah, I think we absolutely can. I think we're called to love people.
Yeah.
That is like a non-negotiable. We're supposed to love them, but there are some things about people that we can absolutely not like.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I can look at the perspective like there are some parts that people may not like about me because there's some traumas and there's some things that
Yeah,
I've gone
that's
through. And I
good.
think when we look at people like we don't know where you came from. We don't know your upbringing. We don't know what you've had to encounter. And I'm going to give you grace for that space because we all have gone through some really
Yeah,
tough
that's
things.
good, yeah.
And I think hurt people, you can tell when people have been hurt. You can tell when people are angry. You can tell when people aren't kind, aren't friendly.
And
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah, and that stuff manifests in how they treat other people, and so I think we just have to give people grace because we need people to give us grace, and I think we could, and I think that's a prayer point. Like God, help me to see, like Pastor O said, help me to see them like you see them.
Yeah. Have you ever judged somebody and then heard their story?
All the time.
And
I had to
you was
repent.
Like, ooh.
All the
I
time.
repent.
I had to
I'm sorry.
repent
Yep.
all the time.
Yeah, me too.
You ever like wrote somebody off like, I ain't gonna, and then you like, wait, you went through what?
Yep.
And it gives perspective and context to, that's why
that's why you
and
do
it
what
creates
you
a
do.
level of compassion in you for that person because you're like, I didn't even know. That's why I always try. Tell me your story.
Yeah.
If you can tell me your story and what you've gone through and what you've been through, it helps me to be able to love you and be able to meet you where you are. And so I love that you said that for anybody that may be dealing with something difficult right now in a work relationship or a boss or something like that, take some time to get to know their story.
Yeah.
So talking about judgment, because this is one of the things I hear from a lot of non-believers or former believers,
Yeah.
because there are people, I met a young lady recently who used to be a believer and has walked away from her faith. But one of the things that they say is, why are Christians so judgmental?
Yeah.
Like, why? Like, I think that's the biggest thing. As I talk to non-believers or former believers, it's like, y'all judging without even, y'all in comments. Why do y'all think so many Christians are judgmental before getting to know somebody's story?
I think we become removed from the fact that we used to be in a lowly place.
Yeah.
And so we get this air about ourselves, like I've gotten to this level. Still ain't even nowhere near where I'm supposed to be.
Right.
But my perception is I've overcome that. And so now I'm better than versus really, like we said, looking at the person for what it is that they navigate. And then we have all of these rules and things that we try to impose upon others, and I think it really ties back to, for me, like for instance, when I had all of these sexual partners, not feeling convicted until years later because my conviction grows as I come to know Christ, but I want the next person to be where I am.
Yeah.
And so I negate the fact that I used to do the same things.
Yeah, I think if we just look in the mirror and think back, there's a situation where I knew this lady was dealing with this married man. And I was like, how could she? And I was like, girl, fool, you've been there too. Like, you've been there too. Like, and we have to give people grace and compassion. And if we just think about where we came from, we wouldn't do that. And so I am guilty of it, and that is still something that God is working through me and processing me, because that's the last thing I want to be. I don't want to be judgy, but sometimes we get to this point, we're like, oh, I would never, but we used to.
Yep. Yeah, and some of us are still doing it.
Absolutely.
I was about to say that.
Yeah.
So this is a very tender topic for me. I always tell people, you know your purpose when you can get on and you just don't stop talking about it. I'm very, very bothered by, which is why I was turned off from all of this. I am very bothered by, and I'm not perfect, far from it, but I am judgmental Christians really bother me. Like, ma'am, what? I've been in ministry for 15 years. And what I have learned is love transforms people,
Yep.
not your rules.
Yep.
Yeah.
Women would come into this ministry. They have been dealing with all types of stuff. I have not once said, oh, you got to do this in order to be a part.
Yeah.
I've seen firsthand since I was a 6-month-old believer, how when you create an environment of
Yeah.
love, you create an environment where people feel accepted. Now, undergirded in truth.
Yes.
Right? Undergirded in the gospel. People, we had testimonies recently of I didn't even know she was addicted to weed, that came to me, and she's just been coming to our classes and was like, yep, I just wanted to let you know, when I came here, I was smoking weed every day.
Yep.
And now I don't even have a desire. No one ever had a conversation with her, because we have to be careful that Christianity doesn't become behavior modification,
That's good.
Yeah.
where we're just telling people, okay, act different, but not become something new. Right? And I think a lot of times I was turned off by it too. You're just telling me what to do, but you're not concerned about who I am.
Yeah.
You're not concerned about my story. You're not concerned about where I've been and where I'm going. God does not have any issues with transforming people.
Yeah.
He's been doing it, and he's going to continue to do it.
Good
And
at
all
it.
we have to do is facilitate the space, which is why I love Saving the City. Our job is to facilitate space
Yeah.
for sisters to encounter their God.
Yep.
And once the walls come down, which is why we're so intentional with our events, of seeing the sisters and loving on them and trying to call them by name, because we come up with walls up. Baby, we've been hurt. People have let us down. They've disappointed us. They said they were going to show up for us, and they didn't.
Yep.
Some of us have had trauma in church walls.
Absolutely.
Pastors, leaders that have manipulated us and taken advantage of our gifts and our vulnerability and use religion as an excuse to hurt. So then you come into this space and you talking about the same thing they was talking. How do I know you're different?
Right.
And so I think if the church, if Christians, we've done a better job of just seeing people for them,
Yeah.
for creating a space so they feel safe, then God can do what he wants to do. And so that's what I'm on a mission for me to do in my personal life, but also for this ministry to be. So I'm going to get off of my bandwagon, because y'all know how I feel about this topic.
Yeah.
But I always pray when I did not want to do this. I said, God, allow me to be the example, like allow me to be the exception. If a person have experienced Christians, believers, whatever, a certain type of way, my prayer is once they, far from perfect,
Yeah.
my prayer is once they've encountered me, they've seen something different. Which y'all know I did that interview recently that was controversial with the sisters that are in the sex entertainment industry.
Yeah.
People told me not to go.
Yeah.
You know, like, don't go. But we're like, well, who's gonna go?
Right.
Yep.
Why can't I have a conversation with sisters that are in the entertainment industry?
Yeah.
Why can't I sit across the room with women that don't think what I think or believe what I believe? Well, what am I saved for?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what have I been said? If I can't have a conversation with somebody who has a different lifestyle from me or see something different from me. And when I went, even though some people told me not to go, I told y'all what those sisters said. I've never seen somebody embody the love of Christ like you or talk about salvation like you have. Now I'm interested, and a seed was planted. Because sometimes we try to plant the seed, water the seed. Just plant the seed or water the seed. And then let God do the rest. And so that would what I would say to a person that may be watching right now that's like, I don't know. What you think?
I think another turn off too, especially with social media, you have other believers talking about other believers and other
Bashing
pastors.
each other. I like.
It's the whole thing right now, and it's like, how can we
We on
invite
the same team.
Correct.
We're supposed to be on the same. Will we
Same
always
vision.
agree?
Yeah.
No.
Right.
Is everything our flavor?
Nope.
No, everything's not my style. But I'm not gonna knock you
Yeah.
as a fellow brother or sister in the faith
Yeah.
because you may have a different style than mine. That really,
Yeah.
let me.
And then a lot of stuff is taken out of context too, right?
Yeah, 'cause it
So
got
social
like
media, you
clips.
just get
Yep.
snippets. You're
Yep.
not getting what happened before or what was said afterwards. You're getting a portion of it, and then you expect it to come up with a conclusion because of that.
Yeah.
Like, that's not even realistic.
Absolutely.
Like, and we got to be careful about social media anyway,
Yeah.
because some things are perceived in one way and that they're really not. And people put the highlights up. They put the good stuff up. They're not putting the bad stuff up. So
Yeah.
we got to be careful about social media on every aspect of it, but especially, I don't know why we even feel like we have to comment or respond to
Everything.
Baby, say your prayer about that and keep on moving. You don't have to hop in people's comments and say what you agree with or don't disagree or you disagree with. Just, God,
Yeah.
help that person.
I remember one of my first, I tell y'all about this. I told y'all about this. One of my first viral videos. You know, I've been back in the cut for years. We've been in
Yeah.
Alabama doing our
You
thing,
have.
right?
You
We was
have.
out doing this when social media wasn't a thing. And so I never forget I got my first like negative comment. Y'all, that thing caught me off guard. I responded like, did you mean to put this on?
You talking about me?
I was like, are you talking about me? And it was, again, facing those fears because the world can be so mean
Yeah.
and so critical. And the first thing in me wanted to run and be like, see, this is why you don't show up. This is why you don't put yourself out here because here come people. I've gotten a lot of comments about women. You're a woman. You're not supposed to be preaching. You're not supposed to be doing this. You're an imposter. You're trying to be like other people. You're trying to, and I was like, so people can really be me. People can, I'm much better now.
Yeah.
So the Lord has, really built me up, which is why it's so important that we know who we are. So when people challenge who we're not, we're able to discern. But you're so right. All of those can definitely be turnoffs. But I pray that the real Christians and real believers and platforms like this help to restore hope. That there are believers that are authentic, that are real, that are far from perfect, that, that's really trying to walk this thing out.
Absolutely.
And we have to be mindful of not putting people on a pedestal.
Oh.
On the what?
On a pedestal.
I'll do it again. On the
pedestal.
pedestal.
Because I think sometimes when they do fail or quote unquote fail us or they say something wrong, then it becomes, well, let me bash them. And it's like, hey,
They're
they're
human.
human. They're human.
And we
so.
give them too many expectations.
Yep.
Like, we expect people to be, like, there's only one person that's not going to fail us.
Pastors are human. Preachers are human.
Very human.
Our favorite influencers, human.
Human. And go let us down, right?
Yes.
But that's why we put our trust and our faith in God and God alone.
Absolutely. Y'all, this ain't what I prayed for. But what I have learned that oftentimes what we did not pray for, if God sees fit for it to be in our life, it's because it's something that we need.
Yeah.
Yep.
It is something that we need. And I don't know. We may have some sisters right now. You may be navigating through a season that, as one of the seasons we've talked about on this episode, whether you're in a wilderness season, whether you're navigating through a hard relational dynamic right now, whether it's something on your job, I pray that something that we have shared in this episode has encouraged you. That if God has you where you are right now, there is purpose in it.
Absolutely.
And the same way we've celebrated each and every one of these women on the couch, we celebrate you, sis.
We do.
We see you trying. We see you showing up. We see you doing the best with what God has given you. We want you to know that's all God ever asked for, is for you to give your best for where you are. He'll never require something of you that you don't already have. But I believe that as you're leaning into this season of your life, as you're trusting him in the midst of things falling apart or falling together or somewhere in between, that you're going to see his hand, his grace, his love, his provision, his sovereignty in a way like you've never experienced before. We love you so much, and we're so proud of you, and we're rooting for you. So to the next episode.
So the next episode. Y'all, we did it.
episode.
We did episode 1.
We did it.
We did